Hi everybody! The Seatrout season here in my local waters are close by, and I thought it would be nice to have a new lure to throw at them this year. The lure I'm going to make is an line through spoon or jig like this one, and if you hang in here you can see how I make it. Line through fishing lures like these ones are very popular for sea trout fishing here in Denmark. The main reason of course being that they're very effective. But also they're fairly easy to make on your own, so that's what I'm going to do. The lures itself has been casting in some metal. I'll be using tin for this, or maybe some non-lead containing alloy. Okay? But the first thing we have to do is to make a master. The lure I've planned to make is more or less a standard shape. It could be something like this one. The standard shape is often a broad at the bottom and more slim at the front. This giving the best casting ability, as you want the heaviest part to be at the bottom of the lure. Apart from that, when you're dealing with these kind of metals, which are quite heavy, it needs to be quite thin. This even being maybe too thick for what I'm going to do. Apart from that, well, it doesn't really have to have much shape. You could bend it a bit to give it a bit of an S to give it a little more movement, but actually it's not needed, as it has movement enough on its own, as long as it is not 100% symmetrical, which it will never be when you make it on your own. Okay? So I'm going to start by grabbing a piece of paper, which I have folded down the middle here, and then I'm going to grab a pencil and I'm going to etch a shape, one that is a bit broad at the rear, getting narrow at the front here. I need to have a bit of space to have the wire for the line through part. So maybe something like that. Okay, and now I have a half a lure, and I'll just grab the scissor and cut it out. Like that. Okay, and I'll just unfold it, and often like this one I end up with something that is way too wide, so I'll have to reshape it a bit, and well, I could continue to do this until I had the exact shape I wanted, but well, I've already done so, and this is the shape I've come out with. Pretty much straightforward. Okay, so this is the shape I'm going for, and with the weight of the lure I'm going for something near 15 grams, maybe a few grams more. As material for the master I've chosen to use some Balsa. Balsa is very light and easy to shape, but also a bit fragile, so you have to be a bit careful. So that's what I'm going to use. I have some 2mm plate here, which I have cut 2 pieces out of, which is in the size of the lure, like this. Apart from that, I have taken a piece of 1mm wire here, and I'm going to put that in the center of the 2 pieces here and glue them together. And to make some space for the wire to go through, I have taken this one and set it to 7.5mm. The wood is 15mm wide, and I'll just use that to press into the balsa, which is very soft, and make a groove for the wire to lie in here. And when I've done that on both, I should be able to press them together, and now I have a piece of wood with the wire in the middle. Okay, so I'll just grab some super glue and glue these two together before I go on. Okay, now we have the piece of wood with the wire in here, and I have my master shape here. So I'll just put that here, and as I have a line going down through the center where I folded the paper, I can use that to position it right over the wire, and then hopefully I can edge it out here. And then I'll just grab my knife again here and start cutting it down to the shape and size here. And the balsa is just super easy to work with because it is so soft. Now I'm going to work on the sides of the lure, and for that I'm also going to freehand with the sandpaper. But I have one idea that I would like to test with this lure. I'd like to give it a keel in one side of the lure, giving it a belly and a back which is more or less always up and down. Okay? So to do that I will add some extra, leave some extra material down here at the end at one side of the center. Okay, that should give me kind of a keel, and that hopefully will make it get down that side, and that will be the belly side of the lure. So I'll try to do that. Apart from that, I'll just starting to file so I get it as narrow as possible, or as narrow as I need it. So I'll just do that with the sandpaper here, trying to do it symmetrically, so I have a bit of an idea of where I am with regards to the center of the lure here. Something I guess will just have to be a visual thing, but let's see. And even though I think it's quite thin now, I know for a fact that I need to remove much more material, because, well, 15 grams really isn't much when you have a lure like this. So far I have completely avoided the area where I want my keel. I have to reduce that as well for sure, but well, I'll get to that later. Okay, now I think that the overall shape of the lure is finished. I have a fairly thin back here. I have a thin front part of the belly, and a thick back end here, which is going to be my keel. I think that as far as I can see from at this point, it looks fairly straight and like I want it. The thing I'm going to do now is to take some very fine sandpaper and just brush it over to get it as smooth as possible, and then I'm going to give it a few layers of paint because that will make it easier to see if there's anything I need to take care of before I try to make a prototype out of it. Okay, so I'll just grab some fine sandpaper here, some grade 400, and I'll just brush it over. And even with this I have to be a bit careful because, well, it's so easy to remove material with balsa. Okay, and then a few coats of paint. The lure has now had 3 layers of paint, and in between I just wiped it over with some very fine sandpaper. It is not completely smooth, but at this point it doesn't really need to be. I could easily go ahead and keep on sanding and adding paint or spray spackle until I had a completely fine and smooth lure, but at this point I don't really know how much it will weigh once it's casted, so I think it's a much better idea to make a prototype cast and go on with that. That also gives me the opportunity to weigh it along the way and make sure that I end up at the correct weight. Also, once it's been casted in tin, it's much easier to file and sand without making too big indents, which you easily can do here in the Balsa. Okay, and to do the prototype, I'll be using my good old casting sand. And well, if you don't know what it is or you never seen it been used, I also have another movie where I use it for soft baits. But in this case, I'll just go through quickly how I make it use it for this cast. First of all, I have a frame here, which is a plastic frame for a box, I think, from one of my GoPros, and I'll be using that to frame in the lure here. And then I'll just start adding some casting sand, and not too many lumps in it if I can avoid it. It's been used a lot of times, so there's a lot of lumps in the sand, but well, let's see. And I'll just add maybe 1.5 centimeter, half an inch, something like that. And I have this one to flatten it a bit, and it needs to be as compact as possible to actually give you a good cast. So like that. Then I add a little more because I need something that is soft enough for me to press the lure master into. I'll place the lure like this. Has to be at an angle, and I want it to be straight, so it should not be too hard pressed into the casting sand here. And I need the wires at each end to be visible. So I'll just try. And now it's more or less halfway into the casting sand here. So I need to make the other half of the mold. And before I do that, I apply a little bit of talc to avoid the two parts of the mold sitting together here. Just a bit like that. And I have a brush here, which I can use. Okay. And then I just put in the next layer. Okay, so now we have this. I'll just remove this. And then carefully I'll have to take it out here. And as well, this frame here is a bit conical, so actually I should be able to loosen it and push it out, I hope. I'll just be very gentle, like that. Okay, and here we have the mold, and with a little luck, I think I'll start over here, I can pull those two apart like that, and I have my lure lying in here. And I need to be very careful to remove the other one without damaging the mold too much. Like that. Okay. If it has small damages along the side, it's no problem. I can easily file those away. Okay, and now I just need to cut a funnel, and to do that I need a knife. So I'll just try here, and I don't care if I have the funnel is a little big at this stage, so I'll just do like this. Then I just need a piece of wire here in the same length as the one on the master, more or less, not longer anyway, like that. And I should be able to put that in the mold, but before I do so, I'll just use a little bit of copper grease to make sure it doesn't stick inside the lure, get stuck inside the lure. So I'll just apply a little bit of this to the wire here, and I'll just wipe it off more or less so there's just a thin layer. I'll put that there, a pimple there on the lure. Okay, and as I don't have any guides or anything, I'll just try to fit them up, line them up as careful as possible. Okay, so now the mold is ready, and I'll just heat up some tin in here. I'm not sure if the final lure will be made in tin. I might use some alloy, but generally, no matter if it's tin or an alloy, the weight will be around 7 grams per cubic centimeter, which means that it will be the same weight anyway. So I can easily use tin, and it's nice and it's not too expensive. So I'll do that. So now I'll just leave it here, and then I'll go in here and well, heat up the tin. Okay, and now the tin is melted, so I'll just grab the mold here carefully and holding it together, and I'll just stand up to be able to see better, and then fill it up with tin. And hopefully everything is fine once the tin is cooled down a bit. Takes a little while. Okay, now it has had a few minutes to cool down, and I'll just open up the mold here, and well, often some of the casting sand here gets stuck to the lure. It's still a bit hot. Well, the mold came apart here, but well, if you take a look at the lure here, doesn't look all bad. There's a few spots here where almost a hole into the wire. That is something I have to take care of, maybe at least before I use this as a master. But now I'll just get rid of the wire. Hopefully I can just pull it out here like that. That was very easy. Okay, and then I'll get rid of the funnel as well. Well, I actually take my saw here and just cut it off, because I didn't want to both bend or break the master here. Maybe I made the funnel a bit too big. Okay, there we go. And well, as you can see, doesn't look all bad, even though it's a prototype. Now I'll just grab my file and I'll just clean it all up, and then we are going to wait, because I'm a bit anxious to see where we actually ended up on the weight side. So I'll just grab my file here and get rid of all that which is not as nice. Also the small flaw I had here on the mold. And now the lure is more or less down to the size of the master. So now I'll just grab a weight, the scale, and let's see. Oh, that's very nice. Actually, that is exactly what I was going for. 17 grams, more or less. It's very nice. I think that's fine. If the lure was too heavy, which they often are because you tend to make them a little too thick, well, I had to remove more material, and to do that I would just use my file and file away and maybe shape the lure a bit until I had both desired weight and the desired shape. At this point actually, well, I have the desired weight, and I think, as it looks here, I also have the desired shape. More or less I'll just have to clean it up, maybe add a bit of spackle before I use it as a master for the permanent the permanent mold for this lure. But I think it's more or less ready now. It just needs the spackle and maybe a thin coat of paint. But before I do so, I think I will go somewhere where I can just give it a test to see if the movement is fine. This afternoon I was out testing the lure in a local pond, and well, it didn't really move the way I intended it to. The keel didn't keep it upright like I thought it would, but still the lure had a very nice movement. At fair speed it has a nice wriggly movement, and in spin stops it often tended to rotate along the axis, which makes it actually kind of move sidewards to the side. A thing that can really trigger a strike from the sea trout. The recordings of the movement, however, didn't turn out super nice, but no matter what, I'll leave in a few clips here. Overall, I'm approving the lure for the next step, which is to make a mold for it in silicone, so we can make lots of cast from it. And before I do that, I need to make the master as nice and smooth as possible. And actually I have already begun to do that. As you might remember, there was a few places where there was some cavities in the surface of the lure here, and I used some UV resin and an UV lamp here to fill those and stamp them down. After that, I've been using some spray spackle to spray it, and I'll keep doing this until I'm perfectly satisfied with the surface being completely smooth and nice. I think that will take a few layers, as the spray spackle really isn't that thick a layer, so I have to do it a few times. So after that I'll get back and then we'll start making the mold.